Hello guys, this is Amol Khedkar. I welcome you to this video. Today I'll be discussing about the article that you see on your screen. This is from the McKinsey company, okay? The archipelago economy unleashing Indonesia's potential, okay? This will be the third video in my ongoing series about the world in 2030, and I will be discussing about the country of Indonesia in this video, okay? So before we get started, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel as I upload these kind of interesting and eye-opening news, okay, and about geopolitical and world economics on a daily basis. You really don't want to miss out on any of this. Please don't forget to subscribe. So let's get started. So this is a pretty big article, and I will not go through all of that. I will just try to give you a summary of what exactly it talks about. So. McKinsey is a very good, forecasting agency, and it is an analyst firm, right? You might have heard about it. So what they are saying here is that Indonesia today is the 16th largest economy in the world. Okay, right now, 45 million members of the consuming class, 53% of the population in cities producing 74% of GDP, 55 million skilled workers in the Indonesian economy, zero point 0.5 trillion market opportunity in consumer services, agriculture and fisheries, resources and education. Okay, this is what Indonesia looks like today. And in 2030, seventh largest economy in the world. Okay, from 16th largest to 7th largest. Look at this. I've been saying that the future is Asian, right? So this just proves that. Look at this. 16th largest to 7th largest, almost half. Then 135 million people, members of the consuming class, from 45 million to 135 million. Look at this. Okay, then 53% of the population in cities producing to 71% of population in cities producing how much? 74% of GDP, 86% of GDP. So look at this, even the population in cities is growing by almost 20%, and their contribution to GDP is also will also be growing by 2030. Okay, 55 million skilled workers in the Indonesian economy, that will rise to 113 million skilled workers in needed, right? So they are needed, but it will depend upon if the country will be able to produce them. Okay, so literally double. Look at this. Okay, and also 1.8 trillion market opportunity in consumer services, agriculture and fisheries, resources and education. Okay, from 0.5 trillion to 1.8 trillion. Okay, almost triple. Look at this, so definitely the future is Asian. Indonesia is the largest economy among the ASEAN countries, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Okay, there are 10 countries in the ASEAN region, and Indonesia is the largest economy and the hegemonic country in that region. Okay, but the fact of the matter is that Indonesia suffers from a very different kind of topography, and that's why you might have heard there's a region called Bali in Indonesia, where there are a whole lot of volcanoes and earthquakes, and so Indonesia really sits on the ring of fire, and that's why Indonesia just consisted of a whole lot of islands, and that's why they go through very many earthquakes and volcanoes and whatnot on a frequent basis. So that also hampers their ability to grow in a consistent fashion. Okay, so I'll just read the executive summary. I will not go through the entire article. Okay, so this is the executive summary. If you might, I hope you guys are able to see this because the font is not that big. Okay, I apologize for that. Okay, so yeah, Indonesia's economy has enormous promise, right? Already the 16th largest economy in the world, this dynamic archipelago has the potential to be seventh biggest by 2030. Okay, look at this. Right now it is the 16th largest economy, but it is going to be the seventh biggest by 2030. It is a much more stable and diversified economy than many outside observers assume. Okay, look at this. It is a much more stable and diversified economy than many outsiders assume. Okay, so Indonesia is a Muslim majority country, but it is a pretty secular country. Okay, look at this. Indonesia is a very unique example that the government tells you that you can adhere to six major religions. Okay, so it is pretty diversified economy and quite stable, to be honest. Okay, Indonesia has had its fair share of struggles with dictators like Suharto, and so these two dictators ruled Indonesia for long time, and even Indonesia was under the rule of the Dutch, right? So that's why it was called a Dutch East Indies, right? So, and the name Indonesia also is a sort of amalgamation between India and Asia, right? So Indonesia, right? So even today, the currency of Indonesia has the picture of the Hindu god of Ganpati on it. Okay, remember this. So that's why Indonesia was, a Hindu kingdom long time back, and now after that it was, Islamized, and now there are majority of the people in Indonesia are now a Muslim, right? So if you go to Bali, right, Bali, which is in Indonesia, that is like the Hindu hotspot in in Indonesia. Okay, and it is also a very good tourist destination. Okay, in recent years Indonesia has made enormous strides in its macroeconomic management. Okay, inflation has fallen from double to single figures, and government debt as a share of GDP is now lower in the vast majority of advanced economies. Okay, so debt to GDP ratio is much lower in Indonesia than other advanced economies. Inflation, they have been able to bring down the inflation from double digit to single digit. Okay, the economy part of a resurgent Asia is transforming rapidly. So this economy, which is a part of a resurgent Asia, right? As I've said, the future is Asian. Okay, all these big economies will be in Asia. Okay, China, India, Japan, Indonesia, Turkey, Russia, what else? Saudi Arabia. All of these, Philippines, all of these countries are just going to be in Asia. Okay, that's why Asia is the future of the world. Okay, mark my words. Indonesia has a young population and a quickly urbanizing, powering growth in incomes. Okay, Indonesia has a young population. Definitely, it has a pretty young population and quickly urbanizing. Many people are trying to move to the cities, powering growth in incomes. So the incomes are also growing for many people in Indonesia. Between now and 2030, Indonesia will be home to an estimated 90 million additional consumers with considered spending power. Look at this. Okay, between now and 2030, Indonesia will be home to an estimated 90 million additional consumers with considerable spending power. Okay, this growth in Indonesia's consuming class is stronger than in any economy of the world apart from China and India, a signal to international businesses and investors of considerable new opportunities. Okay, so apart from China and India, because these are the two hegemonic economies. Okay, and the consumer class is growing like anything in both these countries. So only after China and India, Indonesia's number comes along. Okay, so China, India, Indonesia, these are the future of the world. Okay, these are very big economies, and the consumer class is growing like anything. Okay, that's why international businesses and investors are looking at it with considerable new opportunities. Okay, but Indonesia is at a critical juncture. The archipelago economy is confronted by three major challenges in the period of 2030. Okay, first, Indonesia faces a productivity imperative. The economy has performed relatively well on labor productivity, which has accounted for more than 60% of economic growth over the past 2 decades, the rest being delivered by growth in the labor force. But our analysis suggests that Indonesia needs to boost productivity growth by 60% from the rate achieved from 2000 to 2010 if the economy is to meet the government's target of 7% annual GDP growth above current trend growth of between 5 and 6%. Okay, so productivity needs to be improved in Indonesia. That's what McKinsey is saying, and that is true because I've recently heard that Indonesia has a big smoking problem. Okay, I really never knew that this was something very serious in Indonesia, but recently I heard that Indonesia had a very big smoking problem. So if you're watching this video from Indonesia, please let me know in the comments that if this is really true, that many people just smoke very casually in Indonesia, and many big companies like Philip Morris and other tobacco giants are coming into Indonesia, and they are luring young people to start smoking. Okay, because there are no restrictions on the ads that all these smoking and tobacco companies can market to the Indonesian people. So that's why productivity is a big thing for Indonesia. And as I said, because it's an island economy, and because it just consists of many different islands, that's why it's not very easy to govern it, right? So just imagine if your country is just a bunch of islands, and not just bunch of islands, there are literally 10,000 more islands. Okay, 10,000 plus islands in the country of Indonesia. That's how big it is. Okay, so it is not that easy to govern a country where all of your citizens are just scattered in these kind of small islands, right? So if you have small islands like 4 to 5 small islands outside of your country, that is another thing. But when your entire country is just an island chain, It's a pretty hard thing to tell you the truth. Okay. Second, an uneven distribution of growth across the archipelago and rising inequality are concerns, right? Definitely true, right? So Indonesia recently wanted to move its capital from Jakarta to some other location, right? So this is what it means, right? So look at this: uneven distribution of growth across the archipelago and rising inequality are concerns. Definitely both these things are concerns. Okay. Indonesia might want to consider how to ensure that economic growth is as inclusive as possible. Income inequality is a very important thing that many countries are facing. Look at America, the income inequality is just staggering in America. Okay. Then you have India, again the same thing. China also the same thing. Same thing with Indonesia. Income inequality is a very important thing that all these countries need to address. Okay, that is a very important thing. Third challenge is to ensure that Indonesia does not suffer from infrastructure and resource constraints, as its expanding consuming class delivers a welcome injection of growth, and that its demand creates potentially lucrative new markets. Okay, so they are saying that McKinsey is saying that Indonesia needs to make sure that it does not suffer from infrastructure and resource constraints. Right, infrastructure is a very important thing for any economy. You need to have good roads, good railways, good universities, good colleges, good schools, good companies. Like infrastructure is a very crucial thing for an economy to prosper. So definitely I agree with McKinsey on this, that Indonesia needs to focus on infrastructure growth so that people can feel welcoming and they can invest into the Indonesian economy in the years ahead. This once in a generation economic transformation will need careful management. Okay, so this once in a generation economic transformation, look at this. I made a video about South Korea. Okay, check that video out as well. It is in this exact same series where I say that economic transformation has happened in South Korea in the past 3 generations, and now South Korea is a pretty rich country. Okay, but Indonesia is not a rich country. Indonesia is a developing country. That's why this kind of economic transformation, demographic transformation that is happening in Indonesia is just once in a lifetime. So by 2050, Indonesia will again become in the exact same situation as South Korea. Okay, but until that time, they really need to do very careful management so that they do not fall into the trap of these 3 problems that they mentioned. Okay, so what are these 3 problems? I will just go through them one more time. First is that the labor productivity needs to be increased, right? Second is that the income inequality needs to be addressed, and the third is that infrastructure issues need to be addressed. Okay, the report highlights action that Indonesia could take in these 3 sectors: consumer services, agriculture, and fisheries and resources, to boost productivity and remove constraints in growth. In addition, we highlight ways to tackle an impeding shortage of skills across all sectors. If Indonesia embraces these 4 priority areas, it has the opportunity to build on recent succession and create a platform for a productive, inclusive, and resilient economy in the long term. Okay, I will not go through the rest of the parts of this article. This was just the executive summary, so I just wanted to give you guys an idea about what exactly this article was all about. So as I said, the future is Asian. That's why many companies have started investing into Asia. Okay, and there's no doubt that many long term implications are going to be Asian. Okay, so this is something that is very crucial in the world markets, and we should all be proud that Indonesia is trying to become the next global superpower. So if you like my analysis of this article, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and also like, comment, and share this video so that people can get a hold of what exactly Indonesia is all about. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.